So let's do this together now. Let's make sure attack monster is triggered when the attack button is clicked. And for that, of course, we need to go to the index.html file. Here we have the attack button, and we simply want to add a click listener to it. We can do this with v-on-click, or as you learned, we can use the shorthand with just @click. And that's the style I'm going to use throughout the course, so I'm using it here as well. Now here, as a value, we want to make sure that attack monster gets executed, and therefore we can call attack monster like this, or as you learned, alternatively, we just point at it, we just provide the name of the to be executed function to Vue here, and Vue will execute attack monster for us when a click occurs. Both is supported by Vue. I'm going to use this point at the function approach. So now attack monster should be executed when we click the attack button. But in order to see something, I also want to make sure that those health bars are updated when the player and monster healths change. And how could we now achieve this? Well, this div here, these two divs, the health bar value divs, in the end, these are the divs that control by how much the health bars are filled. So if we change their width, we'll reduce the health bar on the screen. And here I will actually use inline styles with the style attribute to set that width and override any width set through a class. This is one of the scenarios where such an inline style approach makes sense, because we want to be able to set the width to any value, so predefining CSS classes with all possible widths we might need is pretty cumbersome and almost impossible. Therefore here, I want to set the inline style, but of course I want to set it dynamically. And we can do this with vbind or just the shorthand of :style. And then you learned that you can pass an object here to your style binding. And in that object, you can define which CSS property you want to change and then give that property a potentially dynamic value. And here I want to change the width property of this div and set it to a value which indeed will be dynamic. I want to set it basically to my player or to my monster health, depending on which health bar I'm working on. Here, this is the first health bar, which is the monster's health bar. So here, I want to use the monster health. So this data property. And as you learned throughout the last lectures and modules, here in your HTML code, in the template of your Vue app, so to say, it's not this monster health, it's not data monster health, it's just monster health. You have direct access to all your data properties and to all your methods without using this or anything like that. Now, the monster health will be a value between 0 and 100, at least once we're done. At the moment, it could also become negative, but we'll prevent this soon. But it will definitely be not higher than 100. And that's pretty good. That means we can use a percentage width here, where initially it's 100% and it can go down to 0%. So in the end, we set this to monster health plus percentage sign as a string, because width is a CSS property and it wants a value like 10 pixels, 1 rem, or 50% or anything like that. So you need to add a unit. Hence, the number alone is not enough. Instead, we combine the number with a string to turn it overall in a string, which is what width wants here if we set it through JavaScript. And that string contains the unit of this value, so that we set this to 100%, to 80%, and so on. And of course, we don't just want to do that here on the monster health, but also here on the second div on the player health bar. But of course, here we therefore refer to player health. And now if we save all files and reload here, if we press attack, you see the health bars become lower and lower. They are reduced, and that proves that both our data as well as methods logic here works, and that our dynamic style bindings also work. Now, there's one thing I want to improve. It's optional, but something I would recommend. As I also mentioned already a couple of times throughout this course, you shouldn't put too much logic into your HTML code. You want to keep that HTML code relatively lean. And therefore, I will actually cut this here and add computed properties. As a side note, this is a nice practice. So here I'll add computed properties with the computed option in our view instance config object next to data and methods, though the exact position does not matter. You could add it after methods or before it, doesn't matter. And in here, I'll have my monster bar styles where I want to return this object I just cut. But here, of course, we should now use this monster health since we're now having code inside of our view instance object. And we'll need player bar styles where I want to return this object here, which I had on the player health bar. So return this here, this JavaScript object. Of course, reference this player health here, as just explained. And now we can use these two computed properties here to set our styles dynamically. So here it's the monster bar styles, and down there on the second bar, it's the player bar styles. Now let me reformat that and save that. And if I reload, it still works, but now we got the logic out of the HTML code and we're also using computed properties. So that is our first important step. The attack function works. Now let's make sure the special attack function also works.